Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to GlideFast on Air. Good to have you here. We'll give everyone a few moments to join before we get started with today's discussion. Again, welcome to GlideFast on Air. I'm Kali Alexander, Customer Advocate and Account Executive at GlideFast Consulting, and I'll be moderating today's topic, Employee Onboarding Reinvented, the collaborative success of Amedisys with Sakon and GlideFast. Let me tell you a little bit about our speakers today. First, we have the lovely Michelle Wheeler, who serves as Vice President of Mobile Product Solutions at Sakon, Jeff Cathy, Senior Sales Director at GlideFast Consulting, and Bradley Garrett, IT Manager of Enterprise Solutions. Before we get deeper into this, let me give you a little bit of background about GlideFast. GlideFast Consulting is dedicated exclusively to ServiceNow. As an Elite ServiceNow Partner, our expert team of developers and architects have worked on both sides of the table, the customer side and the consulting side. Our company was founded by ServiceNow architects, and we're proud to have a team of over 600 experienced consultants, an average CSAT score of 4.7 out of 5, and more accolades that you can see here. Now, my guest today, Bradley, and I'll go to you first, Bradley, and you can kind of set the stage for us, sort of speak. What's really special about our conversation today is that you, our audience, get a bird's eye view into not just the solution, but actually how the customer Amedisys worked collaboratively with GlideFast and Sakon. So they got a spot-on solution for their specific challenges. And by the way, Bradley, I'll get to you in just a moment. By the way, we'll be monitoring the chat throughout the conversation. So please share any questions you may have so we can pose them to our guests. This session is being recorded. People love to ask that, and I understand why. This session is being recorded, so we'll be sure to send the replay link to your email. Okay, Bradley, I've been waiting to talk to
Yes.
you. Bradley, now you're with the Amedisys, and I like
Yes.
you to go with you first, and then we can get to Michelle and Jeff.
hmm
Before I get into the challenges, Bradley, I'd like for you to set the table for us if you can share a bit about Amedisys and the type of work that you do.
Yeah. So Amedisys is one of the largest home health and hospice providers in the country. We've got about 21,000 employees that work out of roughly about 530 locations across 43 states. Most of the locations, all but two, are what we call care centers. And in those care centers, we have clinical staff that work out of these locations that are caregivers to our patients in the surrounding areas. Roughly about 15 to 16,000 of our employees are nurses that are the frontline caregivers. They directly interact with and provide care to our patients in their homes. Um, Healthcare workers in general always in high demand. Nursing is at the top of that demand list, and it requires a lot of effort to recruit and retain top talent. Amedisys puts a lot of value on employee satisfaction for that reason. One of the areas that gets a lot of attention is the onboarding experience for a
Sure.
new hire. You only get one chance to make a first impression, and we take that to heart. Um, Literally every year there is a refocus or a focused effort to really delve into that onboarding experience. Some years the entire process is stripped all the way down and reviewed in detail. Some of those programs in the past, we've labeled them white glove onboarding, welcome home program, red carpet program, first year experience. There have been several iterations of that, but the goal is always to improve the onboarding experience for a new hire. And, if you see some of this data on the screen, you see that that's very
Yeah.
important. This is just general data across all industries, but we have some industry data and internal data that we've collected through surveys and exit interviews and just interviews internally with our hiring managers and things that really bolster this and enhance this data. It's really important in healthcare.
Listening to you
Yep.
talk, Bradley, it makes me think about, because what I heard you say is that you kind of strip this down and kind of you
Oh yeah.
at Amedisys rethink, like, how can
Yeah.
we do better? And that's actually quite brave and at the same time vulnerable for Amedisys to be self-reflective in creating an onboarding approach. So it makes me ask you this: what were the gaps in the delivery of your services, your HR service delivery, that prompted you to kind of, re-engage in this solution?
Well, if you look at it, the gaps there's always gaps. You're never going to be perfect, right? But we look at it whether we think there's gaps or not. We look at it every year. It's kind of just an ongoing, really, it never stops, but there is a focused effort every year to revisit, a committee that takes a look at it. And like I said, this most recent year was one of the years where they stripped it all the way back. They peeled back all the layers on the onion and revisited every aspect of it. Um, we really want our new hires to have that pleasant experience and feel welcome at Amedisys. Changing
Okay.
jobs is stressful enough on its own without having to deal with onboarding issues. I have a past experience from a previous life where I had a manager hand me a laptop and a sticky note with a password on it, and it was my first day. The password didn't work, and the laptop setup failed. And I remember having this sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach, like, oh no, what did I get into?
Mm,
Did I make the right decision?
sure.
And you don't ever want anybody to feel that way. So that's really what it's about. That's part of it. So we this year we took a step where we wanted to find out how much time the hiring managers were spending with the new users, look at the locations that had low turnover and look at the locations that had high
Yeah.
turnover and find out what was different. And we found that in the locations that had high turnover, they were spending maybe 1 to 2 hours with a new hire on their start date.
Hmm.
And the locations that were having success were spending more like 3 to 4 hours. So, we worked with the leadership on the clinical side and said, you know, why can't these locations spend more time? They're saying they don't have time. We need you to spend more time because it's successful when you spend more time with them, right? So they came back and they said, well, we've got, payroll's asking us to do this and IT's asking us to do this. So we looked at everything they were being asked to do. And across all of the support departments at Amedisys,
Sure.
a hiring manager had about 40 tasks they had to do on the start date for every new hire. And that was really kind of eye opening for everybody, So we started looking at those processes and how can we put some of this back on the support teams at the back end at corporate and free up some time for these hiring managers to go and really just spend that one-on-one time with their new hire, getting them acclimated to their environment, helping them, show them where the break room is, where the restrooms are, introduce them to some coworkers, make them feel welcome, and
Sure.
really just encourage them to spend that extra time with them, help them get through their training,
Mhm.
and
Let
really
me
what
let
we're
me
going
ask
to,
you,
yeah, go
because
ahead.
this is what I really love about your story is that you talked about, like, wait a minute, let's take a closer look at this. We have
Hmm.
over here at this location, we're finding a lot of success. Over here at this location, we're not finding so much success. But the human touch, super important here. But at the
Oh yeah.
same time, you're able to leverage technology to make sure that people are getting this kind of a seamless onboarding experience. So curious if you could share about the onboarding makeover a little bit more, particularly
Oh
around the
yeah.
automation and efficiency to ensure that those newly hired nurses are equipped and ready to provide that top-notch care on day one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the biggest challenges is always equipping the business, right? And that's my team's job, the ITAM team inside of my group, that we have to provide the business with their devices. Everybody at Amedisys gets some type of device when they onboard,
Sure.
and depending on their job role, those 16,000 nurses that are out in the field, they use a tablet, a mobile tablet, and that's how they, when they're in a patient's home and they're working with that patient, they're checking their vital signs, their temperature, checking their medications, and all that stuff that kind of goes, they go through with you when you doing a doctor visit or something, at your doctor. They're charting all of that into this our EHR platform, and that tablet is their lifeline to a medicist. They're not at a hospital; they're out in the field in a patient's home working. So they have to have those devices. They're critical to their success, and it's really inefficient and causes a lot of slowdowns and problems when they don't have working devices or don't have devices. So we took a step to automate a lot of the ordering of the devices when a new hire
Mm.
comes into the org. This is something that Sakon has helped us with the Sakon Scoped app version 2 is we have an onboarding process that runs when a new user gets added into our environment, into our HR system. Somebody accepts a job with Amedisys and their accounts start getting created. What happens is that triggers an onboarding script in ServiceNow. And what's going to happen in ServiceNow is it's going to look at what we call our job code matrix. And
Wow.
that sounds like something fancy from a Keanu Reeves movie, but really
Yeah, it does.
it's just a table in ServiceNow, right? That has all the job codes in the organization, and the employee title and some things like that. Executive job families, but it has their device disposition. So if somebody's a nurse, they're going to get their primary computing device is going to be a tablet. If it's a back office type worker or somebody in corporate, they're probably going to get a laptop. Some roles will get an iPhone or a MiFi device, something in addition to a laptop or a tablet. But that's all defined in that job code matrix. And
So,
yeah, go ahead.
no, please continue.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that that matrix is actually managed by our ITAM team and HR. It's a joint effort between them to keep that thing updated and current. So,
Yeah, awesome. And that's exactly what I was going to ask you about the
mhm.
management of that. And as audience, we're looking here as Bradley is speaking and just kind of looking and taking time to notice the detail here, what kind of the high level understanding rather of the workflow that's involved here. So it sounds like we took a few steps. One, you all said, okay, let's be self-reflective. How can we improve? How can we engage our employees better? And and also
Hmm.
on the Amedisys side, there is a cost associated with investments in hiring, recruiting, training,
Oh yeah,
onboarding. And if there's that turnover because there's that
right.
dissatisfaction, then nurses aren't really equipped and able to really do their best job, are they?
Yeah, they're not. They have to have, they have to hit the ground running,
Yeah,
and it has a lot to do with retention because it is a very high demand job and they have plenty of options, so if they're coming to work for you and let's just say they're getting paid per visit, they're on an incentivized pay structure where they're paid for each visit they complete. If they're sitting there with no device and they can't do patient visits, they can't schedule patient visits, can't complete them, or they have to do workarounds that take extra time,
yeah,
when they can go work for our competitor and not have those issues, that's a big deal,
sure.
and it is an investment to recruit that kind of talent and retain it. It's very important.
Let me ask you about this. We talk about the collaboration with this with we have Amedisys,
Hmm.
ServiceNow, GlideFast, Sakon. Did it ever feel to you like you were juggling competing priorities during the engagement with Sakon and GlideFast?
No, it was really more of a hand in glove type situation. We know what Sakon's role is. We know what GlideFast's role is. Sakon is our TIM provider who have ServiceNow experts and years of knowledge and understanding of Amedisys and their practices. And you have GlideFast, who is, a top tier ServiceNow provider and is a partner with us too. So they kind of really work together and played off of each other. It was really refreshing having a that deep of a bench on both sides that they could collaborate and bounce ideas off of each other and improve each other's efforts and really just have peer review on both sides. It worked out really well. So
Awesome, awesome. Well, Bradley, I thank you for kind of adding the color to this conversation. Michelle Wheeler from Sakon, I want to go to you next. You can speak to
Mhm.
the Sakon piece of this, and
Mhm.
you have this beautiful flow chart here, and I really like this because it's super engaging. It helps me to understand and the audience to understand like how you were able to deliver this solution. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. First, if you don't mind, I was going to use this public forum just to say, Bradley, it was so great to be able to work with you and your
yeah,
team and Amedisys on this project. And it's not, it's not too often where you can work on something that really will make a difference in people's lives. And in this particular case, right, make a difference in the lives when it's really, really difficult for them. So something I'll definitely take away and appreciate that.
Yeah, certainly. My pleasure as well.
So just kind of pivoting back to this workflow and the technology, I think to really understand the role of the SakonMobile for ServiceNow application, you really need to understand the kind of larger role of that Sakon plays for Amedisys and for the enterprise.
Sure.
At least for now, in the foreseeable future, I think probably everyone can agree managing enterprise mobility is complex, right? And with the proliferation of device and enterprise app usage, that those complexities are ever growing. And I just think it's so interesting because if you break down, right, those complexities, generally at the root of it is data, right?
Yes.
And, for any given one of us on the call, think about your company. I promise you that there's probably anywhere between 5 and 20 data sources that are a result of your enterprise mobility ecosystem. And if you look even closer at those data sources, guess what? They're everywhere. They're siloed, they're decentralized, and they come from many different places, right? Carriers, enterprise systems, contracts, VARs, service providers. And for any enterprise that has the objective or the hope, right, to centralize, to have visibility across their mobile estate, to have control, to be able to enable the most amazing end user experience like we're talking about today, or really be confident in their asset information, for example, you must wrangle all of these different data sources into a single place, into a single platform. And that is what the Sakon device platform does. It discovers and ingests all of these different data sources into the platform.
I appreciate that. That was super clear for me. And it makes me also think about this. A lot of folks may be surprised that mobile solutions are not part of the asset management solution native to the ServiceNow platform. You talked about, and I had to write this down, I thought it was so beautifully stated, the visibility across the mobile estate.
Right. That's a great segue because we also obviously really appreciate the investment that enterprises have and are making in ServiceNow. And with that, with those key objectives, right, to, like you just said, have accurate IT asset information across their IT departments, including mobility, but also to be enable that end user experience. But no surprise, right? In order to do that, you need the data, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's actually, the case even with this particular workflow that you're looking at, right? Even with this new hire onboarding workflow, you can think about this SakonMobile for ServiceNow application as the conduit to all of the data that we are capturing and maintaining for Amedisys. So in this particular workflow, the data that we're bringing into ServiceNow is all about, okay, based on these new hires and their job codes, right? What is their eligibility? What tech do they need? What devices do they get? What models do they get? And what accessories do they get? And then we automate the workflows, right? So without any human intervention, we are taking all these different new hire requests and automatically moving them into the Sakon device platform. Now you can think about the Sakon device platform as a data orchestrator. So it's super smart. So now it's going to be like, okay, where does this request go? Does it go to the carriers to connect the service? Or does it go to Honeywell to stage and kit and get these devices out to those new hires day one so that tech is in their hand?
Sure.
Yep.
I appreciate a lot what you're saying here. I think about just how spot on this is for Amedisys and how you GlideFast, Sakon GlideFast really were able to kind of like align to deliver this solution.
That's
Help me to
absolutely.
understand a little bit more because I want to get into this a little bit more with you.
Mhm.
Help me to understand. So, how do you and GlideFast find success in working together to deliver a solution for the Amedisys of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we really count on GlideFast to be the ServiceNow experts, right? Inside and out. And this project was a great example of working really closely together. You can think about Sakon brings the enterprise mobility expertise, GlideFast brings the ServiceNow expertise, and then along with the objectives of Amedisys, right? And their requirements, it really was like a beautiful orchestra, right? So.
You know what? Are you a big music fan, Michelle? Because you've mentioned orchestra a few times. I'm just loving your language.
I am. Yeah.
I really loving the language. Now, Michelle, I met you at Knowledge 2023. So
That's
last
right.
year's Knowledge for the first
Yeah.
time. And at that time, that was my introduction to
Mm-hmm.
Sakon.
Mm-hmm.
You've been in this industry. You've been with Sakon for, is it about almost 2 years now?
5 years. Time
But
goes by fast. Yeah.
man, you've been with Sakon for 5 years. So you've been with
Right.
Sakon for 5 years, but you're not new to this ecosystem. You're not new to this. Talk to me a little bit about what's unique about how Sakon is delivering mobile asset solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I touched on part of the key differentiator, which is really the data.
Yeah.
And so many times, right, you might think that in order to have accurate asset information, it might come from one data source. And Bradley can tell you, right? No, it's actually a combination of multiple data sources, right? That you need to constantly proactively micromanage every minute, right? Because there's so many changes that happen every second in the mobility world. And I think what's really unique to our ServiceNow offering and the SakonMobile for ServiceNow application is that it truly is turnkey, right? It has pre-developed API integration so that as soon as your Sakon device platform is stood up, right, configured, and you have the data there, it will start working on your behalf right away.
I think about my last trip to one of my favorite stores. It's like the a woman's candy store, Sephora.
Oh,
And
no, yeah.
I think about how mobile first everyone on the floor was. Everyone is mobile first. Can you speak a bit about who is the ideal customer for a ServiceNow Sakon solution?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great answer. Easy, everyone. That's what's so neat about it, right? Is that across any industry, think about it, any industry, manufacturing, retail, financial, everyone is using mobile devices, every single one of
Yeah.
them. And what's, over time, you can see that they're really strategic to running their business. Those enterprise apps that are running on these devices that even Bradley was talking about, that the nurses leverage, right? That is strategic to running their business. So it becomes even more and more important. And that's again one of the values of our solution is that it's a cross industry across all the device types.
Yeah. Listening to you speak makes me think of a LinkedIn post that one of my mentors uh, posted about a week or two ago, basically kind of outlining. Do you remember the Palm Pilot everyone had? And it was basically like a personal calendar on steroids. And that company was doing really well at the time and made this remark. She said something along the lines that, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, Apple will be selling fruit at a fruit stand, something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing.
Right.
Fast forward from the age of the Palm Pilot to where we
Mhm.
are now, you look at companies like Amedisys that is using mobile for mission critical work. We're talking about nurses who
Yeah.
are in hospice cares, right?
Yes.
This has gone way beyond just your personal assistant or your personal planner, right?
Yeah, you nailed it.
If you
Absolutely.
can talk a little bit more about that. You've seen this. You're on the ground with this and have been on the ground for some time with this solution.
About the different device types and how important it is. Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
that's
about the importance of mobile.
yeah, it's definitely a shift, right? That's, right about it used to be devices in the enterprise was a kind of a nice to have. You checked your email and, maybe, your Outlook to see when your next meeting was. But that is totally shifted. As I mentioned before, right? These devices are imperative to people doing their jobs and keeping the lights on, right?
Yeah.
Generating revenue for enterprises. And I won't stay on my soapbox too long, but it's not about the physical device, actually. It's about the enterprise applications that are on the
Hmm.
device, right? That makes them so important.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Well, I thank you so much for that, Michelle. This has been awesome. I would love to bring my colleague, Jeff Cathy, into the conversation. Jeff Cathy, Senior Sales Director at GlideFast Consulting. Jeff. Now, hi, Jeff. Good to be speaking with you. Now,
Likewise.
the Amedisys journey really allows everyone to witness the collaborative nature of delivering a solution that really centers the customer. Can you talk about GlideFast's role in implementing the solution within the Amedisys infrastructure?
Sure. With our implementation of Sakon within ServiceNow, everything begins not only with Amedisys, but with all customers in the discovery and understanding of where a customer is, Amedisys in this case, and where they want to go, and the outcomes that they want to achieve, and how do we support them to arrive at that destination, the destination being the outcomes, working with Michelle and team at Sakon, with Bradley, his team, his leadership there at Amedisys, and they both spoke about it very well. It was collaborative. It was bouncing things off of one another. In some cases, it was maybe challenging what one wanted to do or how they thought about things to come up with a collaborative, I guess, agreement to best practice and what we needed to drive together. We couldn't have had success, I don't think, Bradley and Michelle, without one another and our teams in driving this.
You know what, Jeff? You said something that I think really needs to be underscored.
Mm-hmm.
You hinted at we wanted to make sure that we were doing the best by Amedisys, and my interpretation, clarify if I'm incorrect here, that there were times where there was a push and pull, right? We all three, Amedisys, GlideFast, Sakon, came to the table with our level of expertise, but there was that bit of tension to really make sure that we were creating something spot on. Maybe we could have gone this way, we could have gone that way, but we said, wait a minute, let us put our heads together so we're finding something that is going to be successful and sustainable long term.
Sure. And I think tension is not the right word. I think it's measure twice and cut once is what we did with this. And if you look at the workflow, that's built out here, it was a collaborative effort to arrive at what this looks like to then go and implement and execute against it. So it was really, I wouldn't say challenging, but making sure and having consensus with how we get to where it was we were going.
Yeah.
I can give an example of that.
Yeah, please.
So yeah, we as we were going, we were doing some testing on the onboarding script that places the orders for the devices and automates all of that, and we had some duplication of some orders. Not many, but a few orders were being duplicated, and we started delving into that, and we found that if two user accounts became active at roughly the same time and they were adding items into a cart for that user, their carts were getting mixed up. It was actually, and this happens to me and my wife when we're both adding stuff into the Amazon cart at the same time, and I go to I go to check out, and it's twice what I thought I was expecting to pay. And I'm like, and I see makeup and hair products and stuff in there. I'm like, well, I didn't order this. But so what was happening is you were getting some cross tickets there. Well, since Sakon had began developing that onboarding script, and when we had gotten to the testing phase, ServiceNow had put an update out that allow you to assign unique IDs to separate carts. And GlideFast was aware of that update had recently come out and was able to share that information with Sakon, and we were able to fix that issue. But it was a perfect example of Sakon developing something, and since that development had begun, something new had come along that could enhance that, and GlideFast was able to offer their knowledge of that, and it all worked out. So
that's the value, Kylie, of the 600 plus consultants that we have and are always up to speed with the latest and greatest with ServiceNow to be able to add that very tangible value benefit back to customers like Amedisys.
Yep.
Jeff, speak a little bit more into that. You talk about the 600 consultants, and I'm also hearing the approach here was like not saying, "Hey, Bradley, tell us what we want and we'll do it," but taking those that brain power of those 600 plus consultants and saying, hey, let's be really prescriptive here. Let's make sure like what are the outcomes that Bradley Amedisys is looking for, and how can we best deliver against that to make sure that long term he's going to be successful. Can you speak a little bit maybe to how GlideFast works with customers along those lines?
Sure. And so again, so much of what we do and the criticality of discovery to drive that is so important to the entire process. And through that, and with Bradley and Amedisys, in this case, there was discovery, and there was GlideFast driving the general ServiceNow platform consultation to Amedisys in how Sakon interacts and integrates with like what you saw on the workflow slide there, to understand that, and then carrying the GlideFast role further. It's taking a look at the estate, if you will, of the Amedisys technology, and how do we make all of this come to life through analyzing things like REST APIs, the scripts Bradley has alluded to, the business rules to update the structure of the Sakon components to align with the Amedisys processes and business needs that Bradley has spoken to. And once you get into that, Kali, and again, in the case of Amedisys here, then it's putting together that documentation surrounding those various processes, facilitating the testing of all of these various scenarios, making updates to Sakon and the Sakon-driven catalog items, of which the employees engage with, right, on the ServiceNow platform to ensure an expected display of those items and request types in the service portal for Amedisys and their people. Now, once the Amedisys employees received their device, and Bradley gave the story of his previous life, he was handed a laptop and a sticky note. Well, we took that much, much, much further in
Yes.
working with he and his team with the virtual agent. And so building out with Bradley and his team, then the virtual agent that's also on the ServiceNow platform, the chat that supports that, the how-to videos that walk you through. Bradley said, hey, I in that former life, I got to a place I couldn't go any further, and I was wondering, what do I do? How do I do it? Yeah. And so their team was very innovative, tip of the spear with virtual agent, and challenged us, hey, can you guys put videos into our virtual chat to walk through? And so we did that. And over the course of that, the daily stand-up calls, the testing, regression testing, user acceptance there at the end to deliver what I think is a beautiful, really sleek product, built on the ServiceNow platform that really makes life for Amedisys employees easier, not only for the onboarding piece, but that critical retention piece that Bradley spoke of as well.
Absolutely.
So really, it's understanding the outcome and where a customer is, and then GlideFast and potentially other partners like Sakon working together to make that happen.
Thank you so much for that. And I really appreciate that clarity. I think it helps to kind of fill in the picture a little bit more, adds a lot more color, clarification. I had to pop in my glasses. I see that we have a few questions here. So let's see. First question, can you create a similar workflow for employee offboarding? Can you create a similar workflow for employee offboarding? Who wants to take that?
I will.
Sure.
If we can onboard, we can offboard, Kali.
Yeah.
For the customer that ask that. I'll say with ServiceNow, and it's the beauty of ServiceNow, if you can whiteboard a process,
yes,
we can probably automate it.
Hey, Bradley, I'm curious because I'm listening to you, listening to Jeff, listening to Michelle, and it sounds like, the thread is like this continual improvement piece. Where are you with,
Yes.
I'm guessing that you don't have it all figured out, right? But like making progress, with your automation every step of the way, each year, maybe each month. Where are you with offboarding? Where are you with this kind of continual improvement?
It's a pretty good process. We actually have an effort queued up right now to deconstruct that offboarding process and look at it holistically from a point of making sure that devices are being reallocated or reassigned or returned from the field, that we can recover devices, that lost, stolen devices are accounted for, things like that.
Yeah.
So we've got some of that in place. When an employee terminates, a device moves into a certain status, and can get reassigned or sent back to a fulfillment center for reprocessing and stuff like that. So we've got some of that built out. I'll admit it's not as mature as the onboarding, and it's definitely not where we want it, but we are looking at it very closely.
Got it. So our next question, are you doing this process using the ServiceNow onboarding for all employee types, including contractors and field workers? That's a great question.
It is a
Bradley.
great question. So I think there's only one type of contractor that we don't and volunteer that we don't do this for, but we are doing it for certain types of contractors, and they come in a little bit from the side. They don't come through our HR system. They come in from a different system, or I actually have multiple entry points because we've got several different types. We've got, clinical contractors, corporate contractors. We've got some independent contractors and things like that. So that's a loaded question there, but yes, we are doing it for other employee types.
Yeah, what I appreciate with your answer is that, and I learned this in speaking with a customer recently. He said, what I appreciate about the HR service delivery is that a really great service delivery touches every single person in the organization. In your case,
Yeah.
most people in the organization. And it really has the impact of shifting the culture. So I appreciate that insight. Listen, we have two more questions, couple more minutes left. So let's see if we can get through these. If not, we'll send a response to you later. Oh, these are anonymous. Okay. Can you explain how Sakon rather ensures that status updates and information are fed back into ServiceNow during the onboarding process?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the data coming out of ServiceNow, but equally as important, right, is the data that needs to go back into ServiceNow. So
Yeah.
that SakonMobile for ServiceNow app that you saw in the workflow does that job, right? So every 15 minutes, it's checking the Sakon device platform to see if there's any updates, statuses, and the shipping tracking information and the ship date and all of that to bring that information back into ServiceNow so that now you can use that data to send out intuitive notifications to the end users, to the new hires, or like Jeff was talking about, the virtual agent and Now Assist in ServiceNow leverages that data as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, I
And
can add some
go
color
ahead,
to that
please.
too. Yeah, so one of the things that Sakon provided us was a sync dashboard inside of ServiceNow that our ITAM team, the ITAM analysts, can check that throughout the day, and they can see any orders that haven't synced properly or users that haven't synced over to Sakon, and they can trigger a resync on those if there is a failure, or if it fails a resync, then they can look at the reason and escalate that up to our GlideFast team for troubleshooting. So.
Sure. It's not a one and done situation for sure. Let's final question. What are the key challenges you face during the implementation of the onboarding workflow, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so there's several. Somebody mentioned, non full-time employees or contractors and things like that. They've always been a challenge because they don't come through our HR system. They come through other systems. And the way we tackled that is we're not directly integrated with our HR system. We're integrated with Active Directory because all of those people actually get a logon account in Active Directory. So we're syncing users from Azure AD to ServiceNow, and that's when a new user becomes active in AD, they become active in ServiceNow. And that's what triggers that automated onboarding workflow that goes out and looks at the devices for that person and orders a device for that particular person and has it arrive before their start date. So
Yeah. You bring up something that we don't have time to get into now, but you mentioned Active Directory, and that's a very common
mhm.
integration that we see and others as well. So I thank you for pointing that out. As I listen to the three of you talk, what I do find most compelling that is instead of saying, hey, this is what we do, Sakon, this is what we do, GlideFast, here's a solution, then kind of shoehorning Amedisys into that solution, you took a pretty personalized and sustainable approach that took a full spectrum view at Amedisys and centered their environment, their challenges to tailor a solution. As we end here, if any of you or all of you want to say just a few words about that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I'll just echo it again. It was, a great experience, great collaboration. And, it's just the beginning, right? Because as we all know, right, in the mobility industry, things change fast. So we're really looking forward to working with both Amedisys and GlideFast on the next big thing. So
Yeah. I think for us, really just speaking on the whole solution in general, it's been a big win because we were trying to find time to give back to the hiring manager to spend that personal time with their new hire and for them to not have to worry about if a device has been ordered for that new hire, that it's going to be there on time, that they have real time tracking information. We didn't really touch much on the tracking, but we get the tracking information for the orders back from Sakon. And then, GlideFast has built an API with our shipping partner that can go and track these orders in real time. You get real time shipping statuses. So the hiring manager knows the device is on the way and they can track it.
Mm.
And so that part's there too. And you can look it up in a virtual agent as well. But being able to have that visibility into where the device is at, knowing it's going to be there on time. And then when they get the device, being able to allow that person to go through a guided setup with the virtual agent leading them through every screen on their tablet, their iPhone, their laptop, whatever device they have, and set that device up for them and have the ability to engage a live agent just by clicking a single button in the corner if you do get stuck on a certain
Sure.
step. But that virtual agent is displaying exactly what they should see on their screen at any given time and telling them which buttons or which information to enter and click on.
I
And
appreciate how throughout the entire journey, there is still that human connection
yeah,
that is driving the technology and making sure that that is still centered. I think that's super important. Jeff, did you want to add to this before we close out here?
Sure. I just think a common theme from today's conversation is we don't look at each other as vendors and customers necessarily, but as partners. And I think if you think about the whole story that we told today, it was a
yeah,
story of partnership as much as anything else. And then to Bradley's point of, oh yes, and GlideFast did this for API and real-time tracking. And it's something, Callie, that we say here at GlideFast all the time, we don't customize, we personalize.
Sure.
And that's what comes from partnership and collaboration, like what we had with Michelle, Bradley, and their teams. I think today was a lot of fun. Enjoyed it, Kylie. Great job
yeah,
keeping us on track and on time. Bradley and Michelle, thank you both. This was
yeah,
we had a lot of fun.
absolutely.
thank you. So much fun.
Definitely. Well, thank you everyone for joining today's session. You'll get a copy of today's webinar sent to the email you use when you register, so be sure to check that out in the next few days. Thank you for joining us, and I will see you next time. Bye.